Did you or your children learn 2 or more languages from early on or later? And if later, when and how did you learn them? When trying to define the similarities or differences in language acquisition and learning in bilinguals or multilinguals, in linguistics we talk about simultaneous versus subsequent or successive bilingualism. Simultaneous bilingualism, or what Ute Limacher-Riebold defines as bilingual first language acquisition, is when children are exposed to 2 languages before the age of 3. This means that by age 3, they are verbal. They use language in a comprehensive way and can express themselves in 2 languages. Some label these languages as LA and L alpha, indicating the synchronicity of language acquisition. To make an example, when one parent speaks language blue and the other one speaks language red with the child. There are also young children who are exposed to 1 language since birth and the first additional language between age 3 and 6, so before formal instruction. What happens there is what Ute Limacher-Riebold calls early second language acquisition. For older children who grow up with 1 language and the additional language is added when they are at school, so in formal settings through formal instructions as starting around age 6, we talk about second language acquisition. And they are also called subsequent or successive bilinguals. You may wonder what these categorizations are good for. Well, in research, they help to not compare apples with bananas. Children who use several languages from very early on approach new languages in a different way. They have a broader variety of language skills to build on than those who were exposed to 1 language only. For research, these categorizations are important to study the children's language use more in detail. On a little side note, the term bilingual can be used for people speaking 2 or more languages. Now, we can also use the term multilingual or plurilingual for everyone using more than 2 languages. I use the term multilingual to make it clear that people use multiple languages in social situations. This means when speaking with people in the family, the micro-society, or in the community, the meso or the macro-society. End of this side note. With regards to the terms of simultaneous and successive bilinguals, I personally miss equivalents for children who start with 2 or more languages from early on and then keep adding new ones. For example, when children like mine and those of my clients are exposed to 2 or more languages from birth in an informal setting, which means that they acquire the languages naturally, spontaneously through listening and imitating, they would be then simultaneous multilinguals. Or if we want to define what is happening there, we can transform Ute Limacher-Riebold's term into Multilingual First Language Acquisition, as the language acquisition experience of multiple languages happens early. And they are, so to say, early simultaneous multilinguals. Now, as there are many different scenarios of being or becoming multilinguals, I like to consider it as a continuum of increasing complexity. When multilingual first language speakers who use 2 to 3 or more languages at home and add then other languages at school in formal settings, they obviously are still multilinguals. They just add more languages to their repertoire. Like I mentioned before, for those who use 2 languages from early on, multilinguals have even a greater advantage because they already have a broader foundation that spans over multiple languages. They have many ways to pronounce sounds, use intonations, words. They are figuring out the many different ways to build sentences across their languages and use words with different meanings. As research distinguishes between simultaneous and successive, early and late bilinguals, what would an appropriate term be for multilinguals then? For simultaneous early multilinguals who keep adding other languages, can we use the term subsequent for them too, as they are adding more languages tendentially in formal settings? I'm not so sure, because the way multilinguals learn additional languages later is, in my opinion, different from subsequent bilinguals. not only because we benefit from a broader foundation of languages and their systems, but because our way to start learning those languages is often more natural, more spontaneous, comparable to when we acquire our first languages. With this, I mean we imitate sounds, intonations, and automatically, to some extent unconsciously, link the new language to the languages we know. I say to some extent because thanks to our metalinguistic awareness, which, by the way, multilinguals develop very early on too, we intrinsically compare the new language with those we know. We identify possible patterns. The previously mentioned terms of simultaneous and successive or subsequent bilinguals are helpful for research in the area of early language acquisition, and they help also teachers support our multilingual children when they know what other languages they have in their repertoire. Teachers who are trained in multilingualism should know how multilingual children learn additional languages and how they connect and transfer their skills from one language to the other. But knowing how multilinguals manage to nurture their languages across their lifespan, starting from childhood, through adolescence, through adulthood, in the most healthy way, is what I personally find most important. Because we can only benefit from our cognitive reserve gained through acquiring and learning multiple languages if we keep on using and learning them. Languages change constantly, and we never can learn all about a language. So now I'm curious about what you think about my musings about these terms and about multilinguals across the lifespan. And how and when did you learn your languages? Are you still learning new ones? And please let me know in the comments. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss my next videos. And if you are interested in knowing more about how to raise children with multiple languages, make sure to check out my academy. The link is in the description.